At 67, Michelle Pfeiffer's life is a story of breathtaking talent, undeniable beauty, and heartbreak that few could imagine. For decades, she enchanted audiences with iconic performances, from the icy allure of Scarface to the unforgettable Catwoman in Batman Returns. But behind the glamour and fame, a hidden tragedy has quietly shaped her life, one that Hollywood has rarely seen, and even her closest fans are only beginning to understand. What really happened to Michelle Pfeiffer? The heartbreak goes far beyond aging in Hollywood or missed roles. Stay with us until the end, because the full truth of Michelle Pfeiffer's heartbreaking journey is far more revealing than anyone could have imagined, and it will leave you reflecting on the cost of fame, beauty, and ambition in ways that are impossible to forget. Michelle Marie Pfeiffer was born on April 29, 1958, in Santa Ana, California. She grew up in a modest home, the second of 4 children in a family that lived far from the glitter of Hollywood. Her father, Richard, worked as an air conditioning contractor, while her mother, Donna, stayed at home to care for the children. Life in their household was not one of luxury, but it was grounded in love and discipline. From a young age, Michelle stood out, not because she felt special, but because others saw a quiet beauty in her. She, however, was painfully shy and often struggled with self-confidence. Unlike the glamorous image she would later project, she was an insecure girl from a small California town who never believed she would one day become an international star. She went to Fountain Valley High School, where she described herself as just average. But what defined her even in those early years was a desire to find her place. She worked part-time jobs, kept to herself, and wondered what kind of life waited for her outside the small town. The Pfeiffer family didn't have connections to the entertainment world, and Michelle had no clear plan for the future. Fate, however, had something unexpected in store. Michelle's journey into acting began almost by accident. After finishing high school, she briefly attended Golden West College in Huntington Beach, where she studied to become a court stenographer. But she quickly lost interest. Restless and searching for direction, she entered the Miss Orange County Beauty Pageant in 1978. Winning the crown changed everything. The pageant gave her exposure, and soon she entered the Miss California competition. She didn't win, but she caught the attention of talent scouts. They encouraged her to try acting, a suggestion she had never seriously considered before. Pfeiffer began taking acting classes, commuting back and forth to Los Angeles while still working odd jobs. Her early auditions were grueling. Casting agents often dismissed her as just another pretty blonde. She landed small television roles on shows like Fantasy Island and Chips, but none of them gave her real credibility. Michelle herself admitted later that she was not confident in her early performances. She was learning, struggling, and constantly afraid that she wasn't good enough. But there was something about her, a determination and quiet intensity, that kept doors opening, even if only a little at a time. In 1982, Michelle landed her first leading role in Grease 2, the sequel to the legendary musical. For many, it should have been the start of a dream. Instead, it nearly ended her career. The movie was a critical and commercial failure, and Pfeiffer found herself embarrassed by its reception. Critics dismissed her, and she feared she would be typecast as a forgettable actress who was more style than substance. But Michelle didn't give up. Just a year later, she auditioned for Brian De Palma's Scarface. Playing Elvira Hancock, the icy, drug-addicted wife of Tony Montana, required a kind of rawness and restraint that no one expected from her. Acting opposite Al Pacino, she proved she could hold her own with one of the greatest actors of his generation. The role was a revelation. Suddenly, Michelle Pfeiffer wasn't just another pretty face, she was a serious actress. Scarface transformed her career. Though the film itself received mixed reviews at the time, Pfeiffer's performance was unforgettable. She went from being the girl who had flopped in Grease 2 to a rising star who demanded respect. It was the first step in a career that would be filled with brilliance, heartbreak, and a fight to prove that she was much more than Hollywood's expectations of her. After Scarface, Michelle Pfeiffer's career began to accelerate in ways she had only dreamed of. Hollywood finally noticed that beneath her striking looks was a woman capable of depth and vulnerability on screen. Directors who had once overlooked her now began to consider her for roles that required both intensity and nuance. In 1987, she appeared in The Witches of Eastwick alongside Jack Nicholson, Cher, and Susan Sarandon. The film became a box office hit and showcased Pfeiffer's ability to hold her own among seasoned stars. Critics praised her performance, noting how she brought both wit and sensuality to her role. The following year, her turn in Married to the Mob revealed a different side of her, playful, funny, and full of charisma. For this performance, Michelle earned her first Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. It was a turning point. Hollywood no longer viewed her as just a glamorous presence. She was now recognized as a performer with range and undeniable talent. This period was electric for Pfeiffer. With each role, she broke out of the box others tried to put her in. She was fearless in taking chances, choosing roles that challenged her instead of relying on safe bets. The rise to stardom, however, also came with mounting pressure, as the industry began to expect nothing short of perfection from her. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Michelle Pfeiffer was at the very top of Hollywood. Every role she touched seemed to leave an imprint. In 1988, she starred in Dangerous Liaisons, playing Madame de Tourvel, a woman caught in a web of deceit and passion. The role earned her widespread acclaim and her first Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Just a year later, she delivered what many critics consider her finest performance in The Fabulous Baker Boys, 1989. Playing Susie Diamond, a former escort-turned-singer, Pfeiffer stunned audiences not only with her acting but with her haunting, sultry singing voice. The scene of her draped across a piano, performing Make and Whoopee, became one of the most iconic images of her career. The role won her a Golden Globe and another Oscar nomination, cementing her as one of the best actresses of her generation. Then came 1992, when she slipped into the skin-tight leather of Catwoman in Tim Burton's Batman Returns. Pfeiffer's performance was electric, mixing danger, sensuality, and emotional vulnerability. Her Catwoman was unlike any comic book character audiences had seen before, fierce yet broken, seductive yet tragic. To this day, many fans and critics hail it as the most definitive portrayal of Catwoman ever captured on screen. At this point, Michelle Pfeiffer could do no wrong. She was not only a critical darling but also one of the most bankable stars in Hollywood. She graced magazine covers, commanded top billing, and earned the kind of respect that actresses spend their lives chasing. Yet even at the peak, cracks were beginning to show, cracks that spoke to the hidden struggles behind the glittering surface. While her career soared, Michelle's personal life was far more complicated. In 1981, she married actor Peter Horton, best known for his role on 30-something. But the demands of Hollywood and their young, ambitious careers strained the marriage. By 1988, the couple divorced, leaving Michelle to face the painful truth that success often came at the cost of stability in her private world. After the divorce, Pfeiffer sought something deeper. In the early 1990s, she decided to adopt a baby girl on her own. Claudia Rose entered her life in 1993, just as Michelle was filming some of her biggest projects. The adoption was a defining moment. It gave Pfeiffer a sense of grounding, a reason to focus on more than just the chaos of Hollywood. That same year, fate intervened again when she was set up on a blind date with television writer and producer David E. Kelley. The connection was instant. Unlike her first marriage, this relationship provided Michelle with the stability and partnership she had longed for. They married in 1993, and soon after, Michelle gave birth to their son, John Henry. Despite her fame, Michelle fiercely protected her family from the public eye. She avoided the tabloid spotlight and chose to retreat from the constant glare of Hollywood whenever possible. Behind the red carpets and film sets, she craved normalcy, family dinners, school runs, and privacy. But balancing the two worlds was never easy. Hollywood demanded her presence, yet her heart increasingly belonged at home. This tension between career and personal life would eventually lead to some of the most difficult decisions she ever made. Choices that shaped not only her career but also the heartbreak hidden beneath her glamorous image. Even at the height of fame, Michelle Pfeiffer carried a quiet burden that few could see. The world admired her beauty, her poise, her ability to transform into any character, but beneath the surface, she wrestled with deep insecurity. She often questioned whether her talent matched her image, whether people appreciated her for her skill or simply for the way she looked. Hollywood's obsession with youth and perfection only amplified her anxiety. She was constantly aware that aging could alter her career prospects, that one misstep could change the trajectory of her hard-earned success. The pressure to maintain a flawless appearance was relentless, and it took an emotional toll she rarely shared with anyone outside her inner circle. Even surrounded by fans and accolades, Pfeiffer sometimes felt profoundly alone. The glitz of Hollywood could not fill the emptiness she occasionally experienced off-camera. Awards, magazine covers, and public adoration were temporary, fleeting, and insufficient against the weight of her private doubts. In interviews, she would later hint at moments of loneliness, revealing a woman whose public image masked a profound vulnerability. By the late 1990s, Michelle Pfeiffer began to feel the sting of Hollywood's changing tides. Film offers slowed, particularly for women of her age. Studios often prioritized younger actresses, leaving her with fewer roles that felt meaningful or substantial. She faced the painful reality of an industry that celebrated her when she was young and marketable, but dismissed her as she matured. Around the same time, she made a conscious decision to step away from the spotlight. Family became her priority. She wanted to be present for her children, to nurture them in ways she hadn't been able to during the frenetic pace of her early career. The hiatus was both a choice and a necessity, but it carried its own heartbreak. Watching peers continue to rise while she retreated created a sense of professional loss, a reminder that even a legendary career is never immune to industry bias. At moments, Michelle considered retiring completely. The combination of fewer opportunities, the constant pressure of public scrutiny, and the natural passing of time made her wonder whether the sacrifices were worth it. Yet despite these doubts, her love for acting never fully faded, waiting quietly for a chance to re-emerge. Michelle Pfeiffer's return to Hollywood in the mid-2010s was nothing short of triumphant. She reappeared in character-driven films such as Mother and Murder on the Orient Express, roles that allowed her to focus on her craft rather than her image. She no longer needed to play the glamorous leads of her youth. Instead, she embraced complex characters that reflected her maturity, depth, and subtle emotional power. Critics celebrated her performances, praising the nuance she brought to every role. Fans, too, rejoiced at her comeback, thrilled to see her grace the screen once again after years of absence. Pfeiffer's return was not just about regaining her place in Hollywood, it was a statement of resilience. She had weathered rejection, loneliness, and the unfair standards of an unforgiving industry, and she emerged stronger, wiser, and more committed to the artistry of acting than ever before. Her return reminded everyone that true talent cannot be dimmed by time or circumstance. For Michelle Pfeiffer, it was a quiet victory, a reaffirmation that her legacy was built not on fleeting fame, but on an enduring mastery of her craft. As Michelle Pfeiffer moved into her 60s, she became a living example of grace and resilience in an industry notorious for discarding women once they pass a certain age. Hollywood had changed, but so had she. No longer chasing fame for its own sake, she embraced roles that offered substance, depth, and personal satisfaction. In this stage of life, Michelle redefined what it meant to age in Hollywood. She refused to be confined by the outdated notion that actresses lose relevance with time. Instead, she chose projects that reflected her maturity, portraying characters with complexity, wisdom, and quiet strength. She remained selective, turning down roles that felt shallow or exploitative, and in doing so, she retained both her dignity and her artistic integrity. Despite stepping back from the constant media spotlight, she stayed active in the industry. Her appearances were strategic, purposeful, and always impactful, proving that presence in Hollywood was about more than frequency, it was about quality. Outside of work, family became the anchor of her life. She cherished the stability her marriage and children brought, and she worked to protect them from the glare of public scrutiny. Fans and critics alike admired her timeless elegance. At 60 and beyond, Pfeiffer carried herself with the poise of someone who understood her worth. She entered this chapter of her life with dignity, showing the world that aging was not a loss but a new opportunity to flourish, both personally and professionally. Even as she achieved so much, Michelle Pfeiffer's career at this stage was marked by the subtle tragedies of Hollywood's double standards. The industry that once celebrated her youth and beauty now often ignored her age and experience. Roles that matched her talent were scarce, replaced by parts designed for younger actresses. This silent discrimination left her navigating a world that demanded perfection while offering diminishing opportunities. For Pfeiffer, the heartbreak was quiet but profound. She watched as talented peers were similarly overlooked, realizing that even skill and dedication could not protect an actress from the cruel metrics of age and appearance. She often reflected on the unfairness of it, questioning why so many doors closed as she matured, despite her proven artistry and dedication. Yet she never allowed this to embitter her. Instead, she channeled her frustration into careful choices, maintaining her standards and refusing to accept work that compromised her integrity. Her own reflections on aging became both personal and universal, a reminder that society often undervalues experience, wisdom, and the enduring strength of women who refuse to fade quietly. Behind her composed public image, Michelle Pfeiffer faced personal struggles that few ever glimpsed. Perfectionism had long been both a driving force and a source of anxiety. She set impossibly high standards for herself, demanding excellence in every performance and every aspect of her life. This relentless pursuit of perfection sometimes left her feeling isolated, exhausted, and vulnerable. In her youth, she also had a brief involvement with a cult-like group, an experience she later described as both confusing and formative. While it never defined her, it exposed her to psychological and spiritual challenges that shaped her perspective on trust, independence, and personal boundaries. Health and wellness became another quiet battlefield. Over the years, Pfeiffer meticulously managed her physical and mental well-being, understanding that her career depended on both. She cultivated routines, diet, and exercise regimens while also attending to her emotional health. Yet she did all of this privately, choosing to shield the public from the struggles that accompanied her daily life. In the end, what defined Michelle Pfeiffer was not the perfection she sought, but the grace with which she managed her inner demons. She navigated Hollywood's pressures, personal insecurities, and life's challenges with dignity, creating a legacy that was as much about strength and resilience as it was about talent. For Michelle Pfeiffer, family became the sanctuary that allowed her to navigate the relentless pressures of Hollywood. Her marriage to David E. Kelly offered stability that she had never experienced during her earlier years. With 2 children, Claudia Rose, whom she adopted, and John Henry, her biological son, Michelle built a life grounded in love, privacy, and normalcy, far removed from the glare of red carpets and film premieres. Her children were more than family, they were her anchor. She made intentional decisions to step back from high-profile projects when necessary, prioritizing their upbringing and emotional well-being. Family dinners, quiet vacations, and the everyday routines of home life were sacrosanct. Even as her career demanded her attention, she created boundaries to ensure that her children would not bear the burdens of fame. Yet balancing motherhood with a demanding career was bittersweet. There were sacrifices, roles she might have pursued, projects she declined, but Michelle viewed them as necessary trade-offs. In interviews, she reflected on the profound joy of raising her children, acknowledging that family gave her a sense of purpose and fulfillment that no award or accolade could ever match. Her personal life, though private, was a testament to resilience and the enduring strength that comes from love. Despite her acclaim and box office success, Michelle Pfeiffer's career was not without setbacks. Some projects she poured herself into failed commercially or critically, leaving her with disappointment despite her dedication. Films that might have elevated her further were overlooked or dismissed, a reminder that even talent could not guarantee consistent triumph. Equally challenging were the roles she passed on, parts that later became iconic for other actresses. Such decisions, though often made with careful consideration, sometimes contributed to a sense of professional regret. Hollywood's landscape was shifting, favoring youth over experience, spectacle over subtlety, and commercial appeal over artistic merit. This left Pfeiffer navigating periods where opportunities felt limited, despite her reputation and proven skill. Financially, while she was never in jeopardy, these setbacks were humbling. They reinforced the reality that fame and fortune are not synonymous with stability or creative fulfillment. From these experiences, Michelle learned valuable lessons about patience, discernment, and the importance of aligning her work with her values. Even in loss, she maintained her dignity, quietly weathering the ebbs and flows of a demanding industry. Michelle Pfeiffer's response to the challenges of her career and personal life was not retreat but reinvention. Beyond acting, she explored new avenues that allowed her to assert control and creativity. One of the most notable endeavors was the creation of her fragrance line, Henry Rose, a brand focused on transparency and non-toxic ingredients. It reflected her commitment to authenticity, health, and meaningful work beyond Hollywood's superficiality. Through Henry Rose and other ventures, Pfeiffer became a champion for clean beauty and conscious living. She used her platform not merely for profit but to inspire women to make empowered choices about their health and self-expression. Her advocacy extended beyond business, influencing conversations around wellness, sustainability, and personal integrity. Even after decades in Hollywood, Michelle's resilience shone in her ability to adapt. She embraced roles that reflected her age and experience, built a family-centered life, and pursued projects aligned with her principles. In doing so, she created a narrative not just of survival, but of triumph, demonstrating that reinvention is not a retreat from failure, but a bold declaration of strength, vision, and authenticity. At 67, Michelle Pfeiffer's health and wellness became an essential focus of her life, though she never allowed it to dominate the public narrative. Aging, even for someone whose beauty seemed timeless, brought inevitable physical and emotional challenges. Maintaining the vitality needed for demanding roles required careful attention to diet, exercise, and mental well-being. Pfeiffer spoke candidly about the discipline it took to stay in shape, but she also acknowledged the emotional weight of watching her body and energy change over time. The physical strain of past roles, long hours on set, stunt work for films like Batman Returns, and grueling shooting schedules, left their mark. But perhaps more challenging was the psychological toll. Living under the constant gaze of fans, media, and critics amplified insecurities about appearance and relevance. Despite this, Michelle approached her health with quiet determination, blending mindfulness, exercise, and nutrition to preserve both body and spirit. The heartbreak was subtle but real. Even an icon like Pfeiffer could not escape the passage of time, and she faced it with both courage and grace. For decades, the world has admired Michelle Pfeiffer as a symbol of beauty, talent, and elegance. To fans, she is a flawless actress whose performances remain iconic. Yet the reality of her life was far more complex. Behind the glamorous photo shoots and red carpet appearances was a woman acutely aware of the gap between perception and reality. The loneliness of being idolized was profound. Fans and the media often projected ideals onto her, expecting perfection in every facet of her life. The pressure to live up to an image she did not always feel capable of sustaining weighed heavily. In private, she wrestled with self-doubt, the need for validation, and the tension between who she was and who Hollywood demanded her to be. Her humanity, her insecurities, her fears, her quiet triumphs, was rarely visible to the public eye. This duality shaped Pfeiffer's approach to her career and personal life. She protected her family, sought privacy, and made careful choices about the role she accepted. The public saw an icon. In truth, she was a woman navigating fame, age, and personal identity with careful precision, revealing the bittersweet nature of stardom. Michelle Pfeiffer's impact on cinema and culture is undeniable. From the icy allure of Elvira Hancock in Scarface to the fierce complexity of Catwoman, she redefined what it meant to portray strong, multifaceted women on screen. Her performances offered a template for powerful female leads, blending vulnerability with resilience, and intelligence with sensuality. Beyond her iconic roles, Pfeiffer influenced generations of actresses who followed. Many have cited her ability to balance glamour and depth as an inspiration, proving that women could be both beautiful and brilliant, seductive and substantial. Her career choices reflect a philosophy that success is not only measured in box office numbers or awards but in leaving a lasting impression on audiences and elevating the art form itself. Even in semi-retirement, her films continue to inspire. Young audiences discover her work and find characters who resonate decades later. Pfeiffer's legacy is one of quiet strength, an enduring testament to talent, integrity, and the courage to chart one's own path in a world that often resists it. For those who have followed Michelle Pfeiffer throughout her career, there is a bittersweet quality to her journey. Fans mourn her semi-retirement and absence from the screens they once saw her dominate. They feel a collective sadness for the roles that could have been, for the brilliance they hope to see in today's Hollywood that is often missing. Her scarcity in modern cinema makes her appearances all the more treasured. Every role she takes now carries weight, as viewers are reminded of the star she once was and the enduring talent she continues to bring. The heartbreak is not of scandal or tragedy but of loss. Loss of what might have been, loss of a constant presence in an industry that changes too quickly, and loss of the fullness of her potential stories still left untold. Yet, even in this absence, Michelle Pfeiffer's fans remain loyal, reverent, and inspired. They celebrate her legacy while quietly lamenting the realities of a career shaped by time, industry, and personal choices. Her journey is both a triumph and a melancholy reminder of the bittersweet nature of fame. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Michelle Pfeiffer's life and the heartbreak behind her fame, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive video about Hollywood legends. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We bring you the real stories behind the stars, their struggles, and the moments that define them.